Well, hey everyone, welcome back to our second episode of talking about Formula One. Thanks to everyone who tuned in to the first one, where I was really just trying to wrap my head around the sport. Hopefully, you learned something if you didn't know anything, or if you're an experienced fan that you enjoyed what we had to talk about. I just watched my first live race this past weekend. I am super excited to talk about it. I don't know if you're just as excited.
No, yeah, last night or this
Sometime
morning,
early in the
whatever time it
morning.
was, I guess morning really. It was a crazy, crazy start to the season. That race had seemed like everything, but it was a wild race. Season's officially started, so that's exciting.
Yeah,
And the way it started was just for your first time watching a
honestly.
race, like I feel like there had to be a lot of confusion
Oh,
because
yeah.
a lot of rules, a lot of different things happened. Which honestly, like you just like getting baptized in fire. Like
Yeah.
here's F1.
Feels like it's an electric start to my
Yeah,
first race.
yeah, all the rules and everything. But it was a crazy race. A lot of action, crashes, rain, weather. Like it was incredible. But like I don't want to talk about it. It was a good time.
Yeah, we're gonna break everything down in the race, but before we get to that, as someone who hasn't watched a race before, I've got some questions about the days and events that led up to that race. So Andrew, our local F1 expert, is gonna help me out with that. So starting out, I watched like 3 rounds of practice races. They had like P1, P2, P3. And it just seemed like they were driving around. What is the purpose of these practice races? Like, why am I watching this?
Yeah. Okay. So the P1, P2, P3, practice one, practice two, practice three, they like to shorten a lot of things. So practice one, P1,
Yeah.
qualifying session one, Q1. So
Okay.
like they do that a lot with or pole position.
Yeah.
So like they do a lot of like shortenings. So just learning that can help you understand what they're even talking about
That
sometimes.
makes sense.
But for the practices, it's basically like their warm up because they don't really. This will lead into another factor, another question, maybe like the formation lap.
Yeah.
But that's the real warmth they have is the practice rounds, which means they use that car in all these different races around the world, but each track's a little different.
Okay.
And their main car is going to stay the same. They can't change everything about the car. They're going to keep it mostly the same. But for a certain track, they might want a little more downforce. They might want the angle a little bit different here or there in different areas around the car that they can fine tune. So it's
Okay.
all about collecting data, seeing where they need to change some stuff, and like tire management. They might even practice like tire. So like during the race, they're going to change tires.
Yeah.
And so during the practice, they can try to formulate a plan of like, well, after so many laps, our tires are going to be dead. So we need to change it around here. So that can get them like ideas rolling how they want to lay out
Yeah.
the
Kind of
race.
form like a game plan,
Yeah.
like going into the race. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And they just get 3 sessions to kind of get all of that ready,
Yeah, three
pretty much.
sessions. I don't know why, but they like three. They like
Sure.
three qualifying sessions, like three practice sessions. Magic three. I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, you mentioned qualifying sessions. There's practice sessions, and then there's
Yes.
qualifying. What does that determine? What's the purpose of that?
Oh yeah. So qualifying's crazy. Kind of feels like a race in and of itself. I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of is. So qualifying determines where they start the race. However, like the fastest time gets to start first. The slowest time will start last. So how they start the race all depends upon how they do in qualifying.
Okay.
So in qualifying, though, like we kind of hinted at earlier, there's three sessions: Q1, Q2, Q3. And the first session, all 20 drivers have 18 minutes to set a lap timed, and while it's staying within like the limits of the track. So a lot of the times you'll be watching someone do a really good time, but then they'll be called back because they went off track. So they have to set a time, and if they don't set a time, like sometimes your car has issues, and I think was it Oliver Bierman who didn't even get to set a time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like some people didn't get to set a time, and so they start last. Um, or if they have to make a real big change to the car, they have to start in the pit lane.
Mm,
So sometimes they don't even start on the track, which is crazy. But so in the first qualifying session, all 20 cars have 18 minutes to set a lap time, which not everyone's always doing a timed lap. So sometimes, because like where the start of the lap is and where the pit lane is at the same place.
mm.
So to start a lap, you have to go all the way around and then start. And then once you're done, you have to go all the way around again to go back into the pits.
Yeah, yeah.
So out of those three laps, only one of those is going to be a quote unquote flying lap where they're recording a time. The other two laps are going to be like going slower or like off the racing line. So while you're doing a racing lap or a flying lap, there's gonna be cars that are in your way, which is where you'll see that sometimes, like, why is that car going so fast? Why is that car going so slow? They're not always doing a timed lap because they only
Hmm.
have so much fuel. They want to be the quickest. So it's really crazy. But the first qualifying, the slowest five get cut, and then in Q2, the next slowest five get cut, and then Q3, it's just the top 10, and then whoever finishes there, that's how they finish, and the quickest one gets pole position, number one.
Number one. So with those, with trying to get the fastest, I've seen a little bit about all the different tires they use in Formula One. They've got, tires for wet conditions. Then they've got like these soft, medium, and hard tires.
Mhm.
For what I've seen, soft is the fastest tires.
Yes.
Are they like exclusively using the soft tires for the qualifying to try and be the fastest?
Most of the time, yes.
Okay.
However, you only have so many sets of tires, so you kind of want to be really smart with
Oh,
it.
they limit the amount you can use.
I'm pretty sure. Also, you just have only so many.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but the thing with tires are the quickest, but they wear out the quickest.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you really have to like time it right. I so like yeah, they might be the quickest, but because that's why you don't always see them in a race. You might see the hards and mediums because they'll last longer, and you
Yeah.
only have to do so many pit stops. But in a race like yesterday, um, yeah, I'm getting confused on when it was, but at this point yesterday,
Yeah.
uh, the amount of crashes that happened and the amount of stops they had to do. If you went soft in the beginning, you would have like, been able to like gain a few places, pit stop, change into hards, be like in the same position again. So, but normally for each track, they give you like your hardest, medium, and softs. But even that is a range, and the tires can change depending on where they're at.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great information. Um, I guess my final question I have before we get into the race, and this is kind of really part of the race, but they were hyping everything up. They did their whole track walk, like all of that.
Mhm.
The drivers got lined up, and then they did a formation lap. Even though to get in their formation for the race, but to me it looked like they were already in their spot they needed to be. What's the purpose of that?
Yeah. So when you see the cars out there in the first place, normally they're what's the word? A they're moved out there, not driven out there with
Okay.
the
Yeah, yeah,
lifts. Or whatever, I don't forget what you want to call it, but a special lift, not it's like I guess a jack,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they move them out there and they position them where they need to be on the position, like because each starting position has like white lines where they have to stay in.
yeah.
They line them up. They get all the cars out there. They do the grid walk. They do final like cooling and stuff. But then, if the race were to start right then and there, everyone's tires. They try to. Well, actually, you see them cover the wheels in
Yeah, I
like
call
these
them the
like
wheel hats.
wheel hats. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, or jackets, or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, yeah.
They're heating those tires.
Oh,
They're
okay.
just heating. They're heaters, and they want the tires not to be cold because the cold tire is just going to be very slick, and it's not going to grab onto the track, and they'll just slide. So theoretically, a formation lap one lets them get to cook their tires a little bit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you'll see a lot of weaving,
Yeah, they're
which is
wiggling.
dude, it's so cool. I love it when it's a straight line. You see all of them go boom, 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 boom. It's really cool.
That's pretty
But
sick.
they're doing that to warm up the tire, just going straight, so warms up the tire, but going side to side adds more like heat onto them
Okay.
and gets them warmer. So you'll see that. Also, they do final like computer and diagnostics testing, like final setups and tuning real quick. And then also they get to see how the track's about to be when they like where the puddles are or
Yeah.
where other things may or may not be depending on what they're looking for. Like, all right, I kind of want to be here. I don't want to go over here. Last second final tune-ups before the race starts so they don't start on a cool tire. Which yesterday we had a wreck in the formation lap,
Yeah.
which kind of proves the point. Like, if your tires are cold, maybe they need a pre-formation lap to warm up again.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Speaking of puddles,
Yeah.
we had rainy conditions in this race.
Yes.
And in that formation lap, one of the rookies of this season, poor guy, he's so excited for
Isaac.
his first
Isaac,
race.
or everyone.
Isaac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isaac. How'd
He's
you?
he's pumped. He's like, man, I made it to Formula One.
Yeah.
Big race coming up. They're forming up, and all of a sudden he's just done off of the track. What do you think happened there?
Yeah, well, it looked like he goosed it a little bit, and he was trying to warm up his tires, do a little quick spurt, but it's hard to do that sometimes on the wet. Also, it seemed like the painted white lines that were all over the track, they're
Yeah.
more slippery than just the regular pavement, concrete. And if it's wet, your tires are spinning faster and you're on that white line, that one tire can just give out. In a
Mm,
matter of like half a second, you're just here and boom in a wall without even realizing what happened.
yeah.
Very unfortunate. Poor guy. He looked really upset
I know.
after after the race, during the race.
I
He just
felt
had to walk back.
equally parts sad for him because dude
Yeah.
was like crying, and I completely understood because of his big moment. And then I was also equally frustrated because it was super late, and I was like, "Let's get this race started." We had to wait another 10 minutes for them to all get reset and get the car off. But I think a really tender moment was I saw Lewis Hamilton's dad
Yeah.
came up and like gave him a hug, and that was really nice.
Yeah, he sounded pretty upset. Like he was like, which totally understand, dude. Big moment, biggest moment
Yeah.
of your life, and you didn't even finish the first. You didn't even finish the formation lap.
It
Like
hurt so bad.
but so theoretically, the formation lap will help that not happen because they're not going super hard in the formation lap, but in that first corner, which is known to have some problems for people in like that Australia first corner. Thankfully, yesterday though, there was no real crash that first corner. It was
Yeah.
tight. It was close for a lot of people, but it didn't offer any problems. So theoretically, the tires are warmed up and they can handle that stress more. But I guess in the formation lap, he just was not.
Yeah.
The car is not ready.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that kind of wraps up my questions about leading up to the race. Let's dive into the race itself.
All right. Yeah.
Setting the scene, we had McLaren
Yes.
in pole position, P1 and P2,
Yeah.
and then behind them, Max Verstappen. You as a McLaren fan, how you feeling going into this race?
All right. So as a McLaren fan, especially a Lando Norris fan,
Specifically, yep.
there's some history here. One, Lando is infamously known for not finishing the first lap, or if he's in the lead, pole position,
Yeah.
first place, starting lap of a race, he hasn't completed that lap, staying in first place, and he's done it a few times now. So it's like it was for a while. I was like, oh, he's in pole position, he's not gonna keep it. But yesterday, he was able to change that fact, and now he has kept the lead, which was very encouraging. I also know, like, there's little asterisks there because it was wet, so they probably weren't going flat out as
Sure.
much or as hard because they have to be cautious. So they weren't going crazy attacking the very first lap. Nonetheless, he was still able to get that done.
You got to break the curse somehow.
Yeah, you got to break it. Which, there's another curse I want to talk about
Okay.
later. So
All right.
hopefully I remember that.
Yeah, write that down. Write that down. Future curse.
Curse. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think he did an incredible job getting out because I knew Max was going to immediately just attack the two McLarens, which we saw him do. But Oscar was able to keep him off for a second. But then just because of how good Max is, ended up getting around him later on.
Yeah. Man, Max is like before the race started, everyone's like, Red Bull, they're having car problems. And I want to say that might be true for the rookie, Liam Lawson, rookie, even though he's raced a little bit.
Sure.
He's having the issues with the car, but Max, I think you could give him the car with so many problems and he's still going to make it work and get somewhere good. But McLaren, yeah, they did really good. Oscar they both made the same mistake, but Lando was able to get back on the track and fix it and correct it faster than Oscar was, and Oscar got caught out. But I know it was a big day for him. Home race, Australia. They're all rooting for the home guy. And he just beaches himself almost in the grass. But he didn't give up. He was working that car. He got out, and then he got back in the points. And he had a crazy move on Lewis Hamilton. It was bold.
Yeah.
And it was very respectful to him. He did not give up. And I felt bad. At the same time, though, I know him and Lando are going to have a long season fighting each other. And as of right now, Lando has the upper hand, which is nice. I think Lando is a better driver, but Oscar, he's hungry. He wants it. And it's going to be, I feel like there's going to be might be some drama there this season. So that'll be fun.
No, honestly, it was so impressive how they were building up such a big lead, 1 and 2, both of them. And they were even going on like the team radio talking to Zach Brown, the team principal of McLaren, said, "Hey, what's y'all's strategy going to be? Are you going to let them race?" And we just heard him say, "Y'all can race." Yeah. I was like, "Oh, let's go." And then a few minutes after that, we had a crash.
Yeah.
So I think we should break down the crashes a little bit from this race.
Yeah.
Because all in all, after everything was said and done, 6 cars did not finish this race. One of those, as we talked about, was in the formation lap.
Mhm.
The other 5 was after the race actually started.
Yeah.
So the rain was coming down heavy. It was tough for them to stay on the track. Our first wreck, I'm trying to remember who it was.
The first one was it?
Was it Jack?
I don't know, it was Jack?
I think Jack Doolan was first. He was in the Alpine.
He was.
So
He
yeah,
was
they were
first.
going down a straight, and then he just slipped, went into the wall.
Yeah.
Safety car comes out, and we're like, okay, it's just gonna be chill for a little bit. And
Yeah.
then I was devastated because Carlos Sainz, for my team, Williams, they're just going around in what should be a chill just time, not driving fast, slips off, hits the wall during the
Yeah.
safety car
So
session.
that reminds me because we're just talking about, Oscar going off and wrecking. When you see that your team's car go off, you have to do like, "Oh no, was it my driver?" Like, you have to be like, "Oh no, that's horrible. It's that color that I'm rooting for, but which one was in the seat?" So it's like you still feel bad for him, but it's just like, "Oh, it wasn't
Yeah.
my guy. It wasn't the guy
Yeah.
I'm rooting for." But
Yeah, because I
it's
was terrified it was
yeah.
Alex. I was like, I've been waiting for this race so long, and now he's out during the dumb safety car. And I was sad,
Yeah.
but not nearly sad if it had been Alex.
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah, that was wild. That I didn't ever think that someone would wreck during a safety car while it was out there.
yeah.
Obviously, first race, I have no
Yeah.
idea how often this happens.
That just goes to show the conditions, like how
Yeah.
bad they were, and even experienced people. So it wasn't just rookies. I mean, Carlos Sainz, he's very experienced, very good driver.
Yeah,
And then also Fernando Alonso.
yeah,
He's been in the league forever, and he even crashed. So it just goes to show you that even, yes, like rookies, they might need more experience, and maybe that would change a few things. But even the guy with the most experience on the grid, 20 plus some years, he's still wrecked.
yeah.
So it just goes to show you, like, it is so easy to mess up, so quick and crazy.
That was that was a funny moment that we had. I was watching the race, and we'd had a few of the rookies crash, and then actually Andrew's TV went out. And I
Yeah.
texted him. I was like, "Man, can't believe that happened." He's like, "What? The TV went out?" I was like, "Another one of the rookies crashed." He's like, "Who?" I said, "Fernando Alonso, the 45-year-old rookie, or however old he is."
Yeah, because of the storm, the TV went out, so I just switched to watch on my phone and pirating it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, watching it on the app.
Very legally, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, and I was still like trying to find it. I was like, oh, what happened? But I was stressing that whole, like, because you're just on tense. You're tense the whole time
Yeah.
watching all these people go. You're like, please don't beat the driver I'm rooting for. Please don't beat my team. But I mean, you feel bad for the drivers. Like, they're just stressing the whole time, but they like it. So
I know, yeah. I almost feel like it was a 3-phase race if I was to break it down, because we had the beginning where, yes, it was rainy, they had the wrecks, and the safety car was out for a while, and then things dried up. That's when Oscar and Lando were getting kind of building up a pretty big lead, and then the rain came back,
yeah.
and we had I'm losing it now, but Fernando crashed, I think.
Yeah.
And so things got bunched back up.
Yeah.
And this is where they all got close together again. And then people started changing out tires because they knew rain was coming. So
Yeah.
some of the teams were like, okay, come in, get the intermediate tires. And then Ferrari said, hey, let's leave our cars out on their slick tires. And so they're in first and second all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Ferrari, all these other teams switch tires, they're behind. And then the rain really came down. And that almost was like phase 2, where Ferrari somehow, both of them stayed on, like Charles and
Lewis.
I'm gonna forget his name
Lewis.
again. Charles and Lewis like stayed on incredibly with the rain coming
Yeah.
down in their slicks, but then they had to go back into the pit lane, get their inners in there just way back after that.
Yeah. So your first race, you already saw Ferrari messing up team strategy. They are notorious for like screwing up their team and saying team orders that just I guess they map about and it sounds right on paper, but when it happens, you're just like, oh, like the Ferrari fans just like, oh, like they were so close to being 1-2,
Yeah.
and then they finished 8 and 10. So it's like Ferrari, like they can have the drivers, they can have the cars,
Mhm.
but their team
Boneheaded decisions.
just shoots themselves in the foot so many times. I feel bad for them, man.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite
Oh,
moments
yeah.
from the race was one of the Ferrari radio calls. Charles on there goes, "Hey, is there a leak?" and I'll see if I can find this clip and play it.
Yeah.
But is there a leak? They're like, oh, what's going on? He goes, the seat's full of water. There's just so much water here in the seat. And then they come over the radio and go, it must be the water.
Yeah, it's like
Charles has an absolute savage line. He goes, let's put that in the like
words of wisdom.
the words of wisdom.
Is there a leakage?
A leakage of what?
I have the seat full of water, like full of water.
Must be the water.
Let's add that to the words of wisdom.
It reminded me of like Drive to Survive. When the track is wet, it's wet. Like when it's raining, it's wet. It's like no way. But I guess they meant like his drinking water, like that water. But the way it came across was like it's water. Yeah, must be the water. It's like
I was dying laughing at that.
It's also just funny because like he had, and what he said back was like kind of sassy. While he's just going like hundreds of miles per hour, he didn't stop and say that. He's still racing, still driving by people in the rain and crazy weather. And he says like a sassy comment. It's really funny, but it's also just interesting because I don't know if you picked up on this, but they talk on the radio a lot.
Yeah,
but they don't always tell you what they're saying. Sure. And like when you watch the race, you just kind of think you just see them driving, but you forget they're talking. They're talking to their managers and the team and everything in the pit about like when to come in, when to not, the whole time. They're talking nonstop.
That's incredible.
It's crazy. And just remembering that sometimes it's like that guy's talking while he's making that corner right. Like they're talking the whole time to be in that communication, to be on the same page, to make sure they can map out a good strategy. But it's wild. And then you get the funny clips like that and it's great.
Yeah.
So
I think one thing I was sad about from the race was Haas, the one American-owned team right now in F1.
Yeah,
I guess
they are American-owned, but like their main headquarters in England.
Oh,
yeah. So a few years ago, it was the American team headquartered in the UK, and they had what was his name? Egghead.
Egghead.
His head looked like an egg.
Yeah,
everyone hated him. Mazepin.
Okay. Oh yes,
he was a Russian.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like whenever tensions were like growing between America and Russia.
Then they had to cut him from the team because then Russia invaded Ukraine and he's just gone.
Yeah. So like American team, but dude, it's not. It's I don't know. It's a sad team. But
I was sad for them because we had 6 cars eliminated. So I mean the top 10 get points.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, poor Haas. Surely they're gonna at least get a point from this. And then both their drivers finished 13th and 14th. I was like, man, they still couldn't get it done, even in that.
Yeah, but kudos to them for at least finishing the race.
True.
A lot of teams didn't, or if they did, not
one of the only rookies that finished.
He was
outside of Kimi. Who,
speaking of which, I want to talk about Kimi.
Yeah,
dude, he for his first race, he did really well in harsh conditions. Going against tough people, racing against them, and being in P4, which was P5 for a second. Yep. And then they overturned that penalty and make it P4. So Mercedes with the 3-4.
Nice.
We'll talk about that too. But Kimi P4, dude, kudos to you, man. Like he did really well. I was really impressed and kind of scared.
And he started from what, 16th or 17th? He started way back.
Yeah, he did
in the race, and then to clutch out 4th place after all of that on his first F1 race was pretty incredible. I think Mercedes has got to be feeling pretty good with him, and they must be ranked first in the constructors standings now.
So they're actually tied with McLaren.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because Oscar got 1 point and that tied it. But it still says McLaren on top. I don't know why.
There you go.
But it's tied right now, which is wild. If you were to tell me McLaren and Mercedes would be tied, I don't know if I would have expected that at the first race.
Yeah.
But Kimi was in, because I remember he got out in Q3, or Q1. So
yeah,
he was part of the first 5 out. So he was back there. But yeah, he had a great race then. I know he made one mistake where he had he spun out, but then he had a lap Hulkenberg again, which I didn't expect the kick Sauber guy to be up there.
Hulkenberg getting in the points.
Yeah, it was crazy. But Kimi in 4, and then George, picking up where Oscar, had an accident, or like he got off. So George was able to sneak on in there and getting on the podium. So good for Mercedes. But I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah, that was incredible. And then right behind Kimi, I got to talk about my guy, Alex Albon.
Dude, yeah.
5th place in the Williams car. We talked about it a little bit in the first episode, how you were expecting big things for Williams. And I was like, I don't know if we can expect that much. They already are almost at the total amount of points they had all of last season
Yeah.
after one race.
Yeah. I'm not saying I called it, but I had a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, you really did.
And honestly, if Carlos didn't spin out, they would have done it even better.
They probably would have had 2 people in the points.
I think they're going to be consistently right there.
Yeah.
If not higher. Like, I think Williams is going to have a good year this year.
And that's what I gotta say. Outside of even just where he placed, I felt like Alex the entire race was fighting off drivers that were right behind him.
He was.
I mean, Lewis Hamilton was behind him for majority of the race and
That's
couldn't
stressful.
get around him.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, imagine Lewis Hamilton, the world champion, so many years in a row, on your, like, it's just like raining and you have to deal with him behind you.
Yeah.
And Alex did well. He did amazing. And almost P4.
Yeah.
Kind of was for a second, but P5,
Exactly.
That's amazing. Crazy race, and P5, finishing above both Ferraris. Kind of, and I really was rooting for Carlos to finish above the Ferraris just to prove a point to Ferrari.
Exactly.
But Williams
will
doing
come.
it, Albon doing it for him was great. So.
Yeah. He was helping his team out. And I saw later, I read an article that Carlos went and was on the call and was part of the
Strategy
decision that
team, yeah.
made him change tires, because Alex was like, I don't really want to change my tires. And he convinced them to come in and change them. That's what ended up getting him 5th place. So
I saw that too. Yeah,
my guy Carlos helping him out.
dude, team player.
Yeah,
Gotta respect that.
that was huge.
So that's awesome. Williams, maybe they've
They're on the up
improved
and up.
themselves. Yeah, which is encouraging. You want to see that.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I really want to see that.
Yeah.
They're my favorite team.
Yeah. So good
Yeah.
for Williams. Very good for Williams.
Definitely.
So Ferrari though.
Yeah.
We got to talk about them.
We got to talk about Ferrari.
We kind of have a little bit already, but 8 and 10. That I would not expect Ferrari to be that low.
No.
To have a kick above them.
A kick.
A kick
Nico
above them.
Hulkenberg.
The Williams ahead of them. Like, you just have to feel for them. Especially because they could have had that one too. But I guess we've already talked about that. But Ferrari, man, they're still in my mind because Lando would have been 3rd right behind them, but they just...
It's purely based off of the decisions they made in the race.
Yeah.
The car looks great. The drivers look great. I mean...
I'd rather not see the HP, but dude,
Yeah.
because the car, like my friend that was watching it with me, he was like, what happened to the Ferrari car? Like, they used to look so cool, and what is that? Like, the car just doesn't look like a nice, cool Ferrari car. It's like not even the right color red. The HP everywhere. It's even on their thumb. So when they switch to the steering wheel point of view, you still see it. Like, you can't look anywhere about a Ferrari without seeing HP. And which, I have an HP. I don't want to see it though.
Yeah,
It's Ferrari. Like, it's sold out, which is just sad.
Get that out of there.
But man, feel bad for the Tifosi. So
yeah. Brutal.
And then also Red Bull.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people talking about their car not living up to it, but Max is Max. He can make it work. And then Liam
How
Lawson,
nervous were you feeling in the last few laps?
Oh my gosh. He was coming for Orlando. He was on his butt. And so
I thought he was going to pass him.
I thought he was too. But
honest.
I think the thing was, it's just that there's not very many dry spots. And the only dry spot is where they already were. But so it kind of brings me back to a few of the things I really liked about the race as a Lando fan. One, he got pole position. He kept it. And 2, he was able to stay good on the wet conditions. He had one mishap, but he recovered and wasn't too bad. And then fighting with Max, which I think I'll be completely pleased when he's able to pass Max cleanly because he hasn't really done that yet. But keeping Max off while Max was coming for that position, he was to hold him off. So that was, I was nerve-wracking. The whole time. But those moments when I'm stressed out and then he, kept position after all the restarts, he held him off because they had that lead, no lead, had that lead, no lead, and just having to restart again and again and again. I was freaking out, but him carrying through and then keeping Max off, it was crazy. But yeah, Max was Max, and so that just keeps the Red Bull driver seat number 2 curse alive. Like
That's what I was,
no
gonna
one can
ask.
keep up.
How long do you think Liam Lawson's gonna be in that seat knowing Red Bull? Poor guy.
Dude.
He didn't even finish the race.
No.
No.
Like, poor guy. Like, you go in that spot, you're like, yes, Red Bull. Dang, it's Meth Max. And it's just, I've heard Alex Albon. Dude, he's so good. After he's done racing, not that I want to be done racing soon, I want him to be like a commentator or something, because the way he describes things is perfect. Like the way the sensitivity, that video, I think we've talked about before. But the way he described that is, I guess, just makes sense. And I guess Max is just dialed in on another level that no one can really compete with. And Liam is just right there as another contender trying to make a spot claim for that Red Bull seat, but he just can't. Hopefully it's just like the weather and stuff, because honestly I feel bad. Like, I want him, to do well, kind of. But like Red Bull, they're just a one-man team right now, and that's not going to work in the constructors, right? Like, if it stays like this again, it's just going to be they're fighting for driver championship, which I know Max does want to do that anyway, but I know Red Bull as a team wants both, so it's going to be interesting to see that.
100%. And then someone we have left out, but I think we definitely have to talk about. Speaking of Red Bull, moving to their second team, Racing Bulls. Yuki looked real nice out there.
Yeah.
Kind of got screwed over by his team.
Yeah. He was doing great. He was kind of going under the radar a lot. They weren't showing him a whole lot. He was keeping up with them, handling himself very well, proving himself. And ultimately, he finished the race, unlike the guy who took the spot that he probably should have had.
Yeah.
So he made a statement, which was very good. I was very excited for that. But he did well.
He was in 6th most of the race until they had the boneheaded tire switch decision.
Yeah.
But that great job, Yuki. I thought you did incredible.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see some big races from him this season.
I think so too. It's going to be fun. Yuki, he's just funny. On the radio, he's funny. His interviews are funny. But it's just, I still feel bad, man. He should have got that seat. If he got the Red Bull seat, that'd have been really interesting to see where he would have been, because their car's better. So seeing where he could have been would be crazy.
That leaves us with one person who finished in the points that we haven't talked about yet. Your favorite driver, Lance Stroll, finishing.
Dude, yeah.
It's what, 6th place?
6th place, yeah. Dude, Lance Stroll out of nowhere
somehow finds himself in 6th. I bet he was just as confused that he got there as we were.
Yeah, it's like the polar bear meme. What is a polar bear doing?
Can you give us your best rendition of Lance when you found out that he finished 6th?
Lance, how'd you feel that race? You finished 6th. Yeah, it was a great race. With the team really put a good car together, and it's just about surviving route, really, because a lot of cars did not make it, but we did.
Wow. Anything else to say, Lance?
See you next week.
Oh yeah.
It's just, he's so monotone, which even P6, he should be happy for that. He should be ecstatic, especially because his teammate Fernando Alonso, a legend, crashed and didn't even make it. He should be, very proud of himself, which, kudos to him. But yeah, what is he doing there? I don't know. I was not expecting that. Him being above both Ferraris, crazy. But yeah, Lance Stroll, what a guy.
Come on, getting those points for his team. Incredible.
Yeah. So with the race results, the standings, so McLaren and Mercedes both tied at 27.
Okay, nice.
So then it's Red Bull at 18, Williams in 4th.
Kind of nice.
At 10. Aston Martin at 8, or 5th place with 8 points. Kick Sauber 6th place with 6 points. And then Ferrari 7th place. They're behind Aston Martin, Kick Sauber, Williams. I wouldn't have believed that. Probably.
No.
That's just wild. But Ferrari
fans are fuming right now.
Yeah, and then Alpine, Racing Bulls, and Haas all have 0, 8, 9, and 10. That's just wild.
Yeah. What a start to the season.
What a start. Great race. Very eventful. Very learning curve. A lot of stuff learned. I think thrown into the fire as a, first, you watched all the seasons of Drive to Survive, but this being your first race, you see a lot of stuff that don't really show on the show.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that you don't really realize what they're doing.
They don't really explain it well. That's why I have you to ask all these questions. It's been very helpful.
Yeah. Also, I feel like they don't really always they might show it for, like, drama clips, but you don't really realize what the cooling room is,
Oh, yeah.
like, where they drink water and, like, they talk about the race. Also, they get to see all the wrecks, which is
No,
funny.
that was fun. I love watching the 3 guys that finished on the podium
Yeah.
talk about the race after. I was like,
Yeah.
"That's so fun."
Yeah, so Lando, Max, and, George, they were all in there, and they do that every race, and it's really funny because sometimes, like, people, like, just race each other and they're mad at each other, but then this time they're, like, chill, and then they get to react to all the crashes like, "Oh, ah," and it's just because they didn't see it. We saw it. They don't know, like, yeah, they saw a yellow restart, but they don't know why or what happened. But when they see a car go by, or like whenever they saw Oscar Piastri, like just keep. I thought that was funny. The way he just turned and
Oh.
like slid into the grass is like, "Meow." But the reacting to that, and then it's just cool seeing that, and then the podium itself, very cool. And then
Yeah.
also as a Lando fan, he does this thing every time. He does a champagne pop.
Yes.
He swirls it around and then pops it, and it's so fun. And I hate it. Like he when he gets on podium, he does it not just to win, but when he does it, so many times the TV will cut right before he does it. It's so annoying because you see him do it.
You're like,
Yeah,
"Let's
yeah,
go,
yeah.
let's go."
Black, and it's like what? And like they change viewing angles or change it to a different because the time's up or something. But that's crazy. And like the interviews right after the race, it was kind of, dude, yeah, one moment they're interviewing Lando, like, good race, yeah, we did really good, and then poor Oscar, and then it pans to Oscar getting weighed, and he's just like, you just feel bad for that guy. Everyone's rooting for him, and I feel like a lot of the Australians are probably, mad at Lando, but
Sure.
just because it should have been Oscar, but not really. Lando did anything, so
Honestly, though, great for him for getting back in the top 10 after that bad of a wreck, or not a wreck, but going off the
yeah,
course.
he almost was beached, and he did not give up,
Yeah.
and it was kind of heartwarming the way he was like, "No, I'm gonna finish this race." And then not just finish the race, he got some points,
Yeah.
and not just getting points, he passed Lewis Hamilton in a crazy way for that one point. So kudos
Incredible
to
job.
Oscar, great job. Yeah, it was a great race. It was a great
Yeah.
start to the season, and the fact that we get to I don't know if I could do a whole another one of those again. I want to see more dry and more action
Yeah.
for next week. But next week, just a few days away now. So
Yeah, the
that'll be
race in
really
China
exciting. Yeah.
coming up. It's Shanghai, is that? Or
Yes.
nice.
Yes.
Or maybe not. I don't know. Somewhere in China.
Yeah, Shanghai. I think it's Shanghai. But that'll be crazy. The thing also, like, each car might be tuned a little different, so you don't always get the same results, and the weather always changes. So next week is going to be a fun one for sure.
Gonna be great. Hopefully, if y'all enjoyed this, we'll do another post-race breakdown
Yeah.
here on the channel. Let us know your favorite moment from the race, any questions you have for us, if you have them, and we'll be happy to answer any comments you leave. Any closing thoughts, Andrew, or any questions for me?
Ooh.
Yeah. Do a
Um.
question for me.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Before we end it.
Yeah, cut that outro.
Yeah. So your first race, I know you had questions, but seeing a full race into completion, I feel like that has to change a little bit of how you view things. So with that, like, do you see I don't know, I feel like Drive to Survive, you see the clips of it, you see
Yeah.
recaps, but seeing it first place, what was it like?
No, I think it was super interesting to watch the full race because Drive to Survive is more like highlights from the race.
Yeah.
And you see things from a certain team's storyline perspective, depending on who they're focusing on. But it was really fascinating to see, honestly, how big the separations are between cars. Because that's something you have no idea when you're watching the show,
Yeah.
because they can edit it to look however they want. And so when McLaren was up by like 15 seconds at one point, I was like, oh, they're really far up there. I said, Max has no chance to catch up until eventually there was a wreck and the safety car came out. And that was something that I felt like I learned from the race, was how much wrecks can change a race.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, someone wrecks, they're out of it. Who cares? But then when the safety car comes out, they all bunch back up. And so all that lead they built up, like, oh, poor guys.
Yeah. Something else though, like during the race yesterday, so like they changed the whole format of how like everything, the screen where it's like, their name, what position they're, what car they're in, all of that. They've kind of changed how they show that.
Okay.
And so like for half the race, or most of the race really, they didn't even show the gaps between the time gaps between each car. Normally you see 5 gaps between this car and this car, 2 seconds or like 2 seconds between this car and this car.
Yeah.
Half a second between this car and this car. And it changes the whole time.
Mhm.
So you get to see really how close they are, how far they are. Oh, 2 seconds, 16 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, they get to see it. But halfway through, like most of the race, you couldn't see that. And it was kind of annoying. I hope they fix that because seeing the times really helps you realize how close or not close they are.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that gap changing was crazy. Also then how do you feel about like the weekend in itself? So seeing qualifying, seeing the
Mhm.
practices, do you feel like, okay, now it kind of all makes sense why there's like all of that, or there's just a lot more to see and a lot more to do and behind in one weekend? Because there's a lot of stuff, a lot of prep just for one race.
Yeah.
So it's almost just crazy how much happens in one weekend.
No, I definitely felt like a much more bigger sense of appreciation for like all the work and the amount of people just to get 2 cars like across the finish line.
Yeah, sometimes.
If they if they don't wreck, and then it makes me understand a lot more why the the team that aren't the drivers are so devastated when a wreck does happen because of all the work that they do, and then all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
just all over in a split second
Yeah.
because the car wipes out. And in the show, I'm like, okay, obviously the driver's side. Why is this mechanic like, oh, so but he's been working like a lot of hours, and I got a better appreciation for that from having watched all the practices and qualifyings. And well, not all the qualifying. I did fall asleep. I was fighting so hard. It started at 1 a.m. here
Yeah.
where we are, and
It's hard.
and then it was gone. And I think I texted Andrew 3 years and dude, I fell asleep.
It's hard to stay up for them, especially the night ones. But yeah, also you just feel bad for the mechanics. Everyone they see the car go off before the race even starts, like, oh,
Yeah,
they didn't even get to race with it. It's like, oh, but
no, that was a good question.
yeah, the amount of stuff that goes into one weekend for the teams, the planning of it, the circuit, the city, the fans showing up and doing it despite the rain, like they're dedicated. They bought their ticket, they're going.
Yeah,
It's all very cool to see and seeing it again for a new season. It's exciting. I think this season will be, I don't think it's gonna be as dominant. I think there's gonna be a lot of questions, a lot of variables, a lot of competing teams, which is fun. I want
yeah,
it to be exciting. I want it to be not too predictable, and I think it's gonna be a great season.
yeah, definitely. I was just looking at our standings that we made
Oh
in
yeah,
last week's video, which I put Ferrari finishing at 1, and going off of race number 1, that prediction is looking bad. And I also have Mercedes finishing 5. So my predictions might already be cooked, but it's still a long season ahead,
yeah.
and I can't wait to watch more
Yeah.
races.
Yeah, one race doesn't determine everything.
Yeah.
But it does show some things.
lot,
So
yeah.
it'd be crazy to see how wrong or right we are about everything else for the rest of the season. It's gonna be a fun one.
Should be great. Hey, if you made it this far in the video, if you're not subscribed, would really appreciate it if you did. And I think that's about all we got for now. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Peace.